Hello, good morning, and welcome everyone. My name is Gustavo Gordillo, a risk coordinator at the Business Recovery Center and Impact Beaverton. Today, we are the honor to host our presenter, Luisa Nims, with a great topic. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you for inviting me.
So, um, the presentation will be recorded and later available via Impact Beaverton YouTube channel as resource for small businesses. We also make to the Spanish available through our talented interpreter Jessica Dower, joining us today. Gracias, Jessica. After the presentation, we'll be open up the question and answer on recording so everyone feels comfortable to make any questions. Okay, and welcome again. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share my desktop.
Perfect.
Let's present. Okay, so today's topic is about basically how to find a real brand strategist. There's a lot of people that are brand identity design type creators that build websites or do what's called brand identity design. Those are the graphic designers. And a lot of time there is a confusion about really who does what, and that includes the actual community. So I've met a lot of brand identity designers that think that they're actually creating a brand strategy when they're really not. They're creating something that is a superficial explanation for the brand with the assumption that the client actually knows where their brand should be sitting and what the strategy should be. And a real brand strategist knows that they kind of start from the very beginning and do a lot of research around the brand, the product category, the company's wishes and desires, and also where their strengths are. And so from that, you're able to create a much clearer picture and more opportunities that the client 9 times out of 10 didn't even know were there and available for them. So I've met, and the reason why we're doing this today is because I've met so many people who have spent thousands of dollars on a web designer, a graphic designer, or even a digital marketer, and they really aren't getting the kind of clients and exposure and recognition that they want, because those people are not brand strategists. And so they are only going on what you think your brand is about or your company's about. And a lot of times, again, most companies, and this is from Fortune 500 down to the little startups, don't really have a clear picture of who they are and what they stand for in the context that they exist within. And I used to do a lot of what's called brand erosion work for Fortune 500 companies for this very reason. So if Heineken and Unilever and Coca-Cola struggle with it, then small business owners are going to struggle with it even more. So it's really important to keep that in mind when you're thinking about how to spend your dollars, right? I mean, a lot of website designers want $5,000 for a website. Well, that's a lot of money. And if you can get a beautiful website, but it doesn't mean that it's going to say anything about you. And I've run into a lot of people that have been in that situation, and the same with graphic design and digital marketing campaigns. So we're going to do things a little bit differently this time. If you were participating in my last event, you will see a few slides that are the same, but there's a lot that's new, and there also is more interactive kind of engagement in this workshop. It's more like a workshop than it is so much a presentation, because I want to show you instead of just tell you. And showing will absolutely kind of let you experience and understand it at a deeper level than you would if I just talked to you for the next half hour. So first, I want you guys to take out a piece of paper, and I want you to write down 5 words you would use to describe your brand, product, or service. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. So grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down 5 words you would use to describe your brand, product, or service. And you can put questions in the chat. I cannot see you. So, but I can read the chat. I have it on a separate device. And tell me when you're done. I noticed that people are not, they don't have their cameras on. Can you please put your cameras on for this, if you don't mind, because it makes it much easier for me to see what's happening, and to be able to respond to you.
Luisa, sometimes the user are working, so the problem is they can't to turn on the camera because they are working right now. So sometimes only they listening the audio.
Okay. So can people tell me if they're ready to go on? Okay, I'm just going to assume that we are ready to go on. So next, I want you to do is flip your paper over and then write 5 words your customers would use to describe your brand, product, or service. So this is a little bit different. It's how you would describe it. And now I want you to write down how your customers would describe you. Okay, I'm going to go on unless somebody wants me to stop. Okay, so people do not buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Many companies make the mistake of thinking it is about the product or service, and it's really not. So what we're going to cover today is the main goal of discovering how design is informed by a clear brand strategy. That's kind of the takeaway. But we're going to discuss brand strategy, what is a brand, and brand strategist versus a brand identity designer. And then we're going to do a fun case study at the end, basically applying what we've learned. Okay, so if you were here last time, you will know that we did a little bit of history on where branding started. So it started with a bunch of cows. Cattle ranchers needed to quickly see whose cow belonged to which ranch when they got out or wrestled or sold at market. Originally, a hot iron was applied to their hip, and then over time, a quicker technique using a formulated acid replaced the hot iron. Brands were designed to be simple and quickly recognizable, So local authorities in a split second can determine which cow belongs to what rancher. And that is how branding started and acid branding was born. Branding is about creating emotional connections. People make decisions based upon emotions, not facts. A lot of times we think it's facts, but it's really not. It's about emotions. It's about what you can provide to that person. And it must make sense in a split second to make an impact. And they must solve a problem. So a brand is much more than a symbol. It's the why to what and how we do our jobs. And consumers demand to have a connection to their brands. Only with this why is a brand truly born. So true motivations and desires of people start with ourselves. Now I want us to look at 4 different brands. Most of these are really well known, so they should be pretty familiar. Nest is the company that has the digital thermostats that adjust their temperatures based upon your habits and your personal preferences. So it out as a right as candles were being transitioned out of absolutely being necessary to being providing light. So then they moved into more of an aesthetic. So we know most of us no longer, unless we have a cabin in the woods someplace, need candles to actually light our homes by anymore, unless of course we're having a storm. So right at that time when candles were being phased out around the world, Yankee Candle came onto the marketplace and they reinvented the whole concept of what a candle represents in the home. So it moved from more of a functional use to more of an ambient use, creating ambience. So it's cozy. So candles became cozy and welcoming and more of a kind of a sensory environment, and less as if I don't have a candle lit, I'm not going to be able to find my way to bed tonight, or I won't be able to read my book. And then we have Apple. Apple's about creating a safe space for people to be creative. Their closed operating system is a great example of how it builds up a level of assurance so people don't have to worry about cybersecurity and allows them to focus on being creative. And that really is the underpinning of Apple. And for Nike, it's about pushing people to realize their potential. And it's not necessarily about the shoes. So you can already see how the product is only a kind of an end strategy to create something else that the people are looking for, whether it's a customized environment that fits your own personal preferences of being hot or cold, or it's creating ambiance either for yourself or when you're welcoming people into the house, or it's about creating a safe space for people so they can just be creative and not worry about all the other issues with the new technology. And with Nike, it's not so much about the shoes, and it's about pushing people's potential. So for all brands, it's not really about the product itself. It's about what a brand strategist does and why it's so important to have a brand strategy. So we have to ask ourselves, what meaningful connections are we trying to create? And then what is the context? What is the context of our clients? So now I want you to take a moment. I know some of you are working, but if you can, write down the problem you think you solve for people in your business. And these exercises are really important to do. So if you need to come back later and look at the video when it's more convenient for you, please do. Because what I'm doing right now is helping you build up the fundamental pieces of a brand strategy, and I'm doing it for free. So why waste that time? Why waste that opportunity? So write down the problem you think you solve for people in your business. And I'll give you 2 minutes for it. And if you need to leave me a note in the chat, I'm watching the chat screen right now. Okay, I'm going to go on. Now, I want you to write down the context you think your customers reside within. So what are their realities? Are they really busy people, professionals that don't have time to take care of their, maybe some needs around the house? Are they small business owners and they need your bookkeeping skills because they need to be able to focus on their business and not worry about where their money's going? So in the case of the bookkeeper, for example, it would be creating a trusting environment that you know that your finances are taken care of and that you don't need to worry about tracking invoices and expenses and taxing, and it gives you basically a peace of mind, right? It's really what a good bookkeeper does, is they give you a peace of mind. So what are you giving your customers? What is the context that they reside in within, and what are you giving them? Okay, I'm going to go on. And don't forget that I can see the chat, that I am watching it. So assumptions of a designer versus strategist. Are they assuming you have all the answers? A brand strategist does not make assumptions that the client knows everything. A strategist goes into a client meeting with research in hand. The questions asked are very telling. If the questions are focused on color, typography, imagery, that kind of thing, you're working with a designer. If they assume you have all the answers, you're definitely working with an identity designer. So when you have questions that are focused on what's unique about yourself, that's what a strategist asks, or around experience. Then you know that you're dealing with a real strategist. Red flags that tell you that this is a designer. So these are questions to look for as a small business owner. They'll ask, who is your competitive market? What do you want your logo to say about you, and how do you want your brand to be perceived? Now, a strategist might ask what you think your competitive market is, but I can tell you that in the back of their mind, they already know that they're going to go and do the research themselves. Or they even might ask, how do you want your brand to be perceived? And they can use that to help gauge what your brand is really doing right at this moment versus how you wanted it to perceive, so they can see that gap that occurs. Some people call it a salient gap, but it's a gap between perception and personal perception and reality. And a designer will assume that there's no gap, and there's always a gap. And again, it doesn't matter whether you're a Fortune 500 or if you are a small, 1 or 2 person business. A brand strategist does the research to answer all the questions related to brand positioning. They will look at your competitive market, and it might not be who you think it is. And when they look at your competitive market, they can also find opportunities that you didn't realize were there. So a strategist already has a good idea of challenges a client faces before they even ask you. So they can conduct audits on your website, and they can look at the content and provide recommendations. They heavily research the market to find out what the current context is. They forecast. So they look at the leaders in the marketplace, and they will look and see where the trends and forecasts are for that particular area. A good example of this is that about 6 months ago, I did a strategy for a dog treat company that makes all of their own dog treats from scratch with whole ingredients, and they bake them off themselves. I mean, it's literally baking in the kitchen with maybe 5 or 6 ingredients, no preservatives, nothing else. And I found out through my research, and they had no idea of this, that the forecasting trends for this particular market was looking at more uh, additive ingredients like ginseng and ginkgo biloba and other things that will enhance their pets' lives. And so it's been very easy for this company to take their great little dog bones that have like 5 ingredients. They have whole grain wheat flour, sweet potatoes, some ground meat in it, and 1 or 2 other things, and easily add in a supplement of some sort, or 2 or 3, and create dog bones for elderly dogs, where you have ginkgo biloba and a couple of other ingredients in it that will help with maybe their joint health and their mental health. So those kinds of things aren't necessarily found by the business owner. And a lot of times they're so focused on just kind of surviving and building that they aren't able to see further ahead about where they should be going. And so there's no real roadmap being created. And that's what a strategist does, is that they create roadmaps. So they also look at strategic partnerships, a lot of them. And what we'll find is that strategic partnerships will not only strengthen the company's positioning, but it will build out new business. And so finding the right partners can really make or break a business. And this isn't something that designers understand or even look at. And then again, we look at the competitive field. We don't expect the client to come in knowing what the competitive field is per se. They might have some ideas, and that will get integrated into the strategy. But for the most part, we go on the idea that it is our job to really lay out groundwork for this brand. So a discovery session could be very long or it can be short. With the dog treat company, it was really short. I understood very simply what they do. And so I went and I was able to, from an 1.5-hour meeting, create a whole new strategy and roadmap for their brand on where they should be going in the next 5 to 10 years. And in another session, it can be very different. I worked with a person that has more business services, and I really had to spend a lot of time drilling down with her on what she does and where she wants to go. And I spent probably 8-9 hours just talking to her and getting questions, because her situation was much more complex. So strategist again rebuilds the brand from the ground up in many cases. And the big established companies like Heineken and Unilever and Coca-Cola, Mars, Busch Beer, that kind of thing, they already have a strong positioning, but over time their brand erodes. So refreshing your brand is also something you need to consider. If you've been around for a while, you probably need a brand refresh. So strategists understand the need for an emotional underpinning to the brand, which finds the core drives to engage and instill it into the uniqueness of your company, product, or brand. So why is emotion so important? It's because brands are people in disguise. Brands have an identity and people want to hang out with it or they don't. It's Pepsi versus Coca-Cola at its most simplistic. Brands connect people and unite communities towards a common purpose and goal. Like people, brands need to be authentic, which requires trust and a clear voice in what you stand for and how come. So a good brand strategy builds out this person, and it turns a product and idea into a person with a purpose, a voice, style, and soul. So now I want you to take a minute and write down how you build trust with your clients. And again, if you have any questions, I am following the chat.
¿Alguien le gustaría hacer alguna pregunta? Si no, para poder continuar.
I'm assuming you want me to continue. Okay. Designers
Yeah.
make, okay, so designers make clothes for your person. And if you spend all your time creating the clothes, which are your design efforts, and very little on strategy, then you literally have no body to put them on. And no way to connect because they can't see you. And your brand is just a scary floaty thing with no meaning. And that happens a lot. Or you have a beautiful website and nobody knows what you do. So again, your brand strategy is a roadmap. It always comes first, acting as a guide and identity people can engage. A good brand strategy will guide all your decisions. It's big picture, long-term, and rarely changes. It gives the consistency, clarity, and reliability people crave. Both consumers and staff can self-identify and connect. So the importance of being. Let's look at emotional territories. Brands that excel create an emotional connection with their consumers. In order to create an emotional connection, companies must know the emotional territory of their brands. And there are generally 8 states, but you will find with maybe more complex brands that there might be even some states within the states. So you can get 8, 10, even 11. Many brands touch 2 or 3 territories. So pleasure and indulgence is one, social openness is another, integrated belonging, which is basically means that you all feel like you are connected and you belong together. So it is much more community oriented. Traditional, so more of a traditionist kind of standpoint. So that would be, if we want to talk about cars, maybe that will make it easier. Pleasure and indulgence would be a convertible. Social openness would be a, what would be a socially open car? Something fun. Maybe a bug, a VW Beetle. The more of a belonging would be kind of in the Honda area. Traditional would be like a Ford Focus. So it's something that's been around a long time and it is American made and it's one of the first motor car companies. Minimizing risk is a minivan, right? It's a people mover. So something that's innovative and unique, well, it used to be Tesla, but I think Tesla's moving and the new series of electric cars coming through will take that place. And Tesla will move to more of the mastery because it is the benchmark electric car brand. It's luxurious, it's recognized, it's sophisticated, and it has power. So, and then challenging limits, that's more like the Rubicon Jeep, right? You can go out and 4-wheel in it, or you can just drive it around town. You can put the top down. It's a lot of fun. You can take it camping, that kind of thing. So let's go back to our 4 brands for a moment and take a closer look at Yankee Candle. Yankee Candle is all about a sensory experience. It has moved from making candles something that is functional and moved it more into something that smells really good and creates an environment, a certain kind of environment and ambiance in your house. So it's indulgent and it also is innovative in the sense that Yankee Candle was the first company that really moved the functionality of candles to something to be more of an indulgent and sensory experience. And that's what makes them innovative as well. So Yankee Candle creates ambient fantasies is what I call it. And it's about welcoming warmth and also having innovative scents. They are constantly putting out new scents depending upon the season and the holiday. They're finding all kinds of reasons to create new ones to keep the context up. That's why I think context is important. Yankee Candle knows how important context is. They probably have right now, I looked it up, maybe 7 to 10 just Halloween scents. And then they have 5 for fall scents. And then they've got scents going into the winter and scents going into the holidays, because the winter and holidays are different, right? Christmas is different than just being in winter. And I'm sure they'll have a whole slew of scents for uh, Valentine's Day. So they really understand context. They also are, if you notice, the emotional territory map has changed a little bit. Let's just flip back. The basic map is this kind of indulgence, control, mastery, belonging axis. And if you come into Yankee Candle, those terms change a little bit. It becomes about welcoming warmth and about trust, right? People know that Yankee Candles have been around a long time and that they will work and they're a good quality product. So they trust them. And it's also the benchmark for that whole category. There's a nostalgic piece to Yankee Candles. Not only do they use the word Yankee, which is, if you've spent any time back east, is kind of centered around Williamsburg, Virginia, and where the colonial Williamsburg kind of historical park exists. And so there's a nostalgia to a time or an era long ago that is more colonial. That Yankee word is more of a colonial word. We know that they're reliable, their quality, and they've got experimentation down with their innovative scents. You can go in, and I know that when I go by the candle shop, I see a lot of women in there sniffing the candles, deciding what they want to try next, and that's experimentation. So even though Yankee Candle resides in these 2 core emotional territories about warmth and innovation, they have a lot of opportunity to look at and touch upon points around nostalgia, reliability, trust, pleasure, experimentation, and quality. And that really makes up the whole kind of cohort of the brand. And each brand you can map out like this, and it will look different for each particular company. So what are Yankee Candle's trust and authenticity propositions for you? So that, I'm putting that question out to you. If you can stop for a moment and tell me either through the chat or just, make a comment. I'd like to hear what you have to think about Yankee Candles, about trust and authenticity. What is it to you? And what does it represent to you? Because it's going to be different for different people. Does anybody want to say anything? I'm going under the assumption that everybody knows the Yankee Candle brand because it's pretty much everywhere. Okay, I see a question, but I'm waiting for it to be interpreted. It's coming through as Spanish to me, and I'm sorry, I can only read maybe a quarter of it. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so Yankee Candles are in stores in most of the major malls. And they don't have a big storefront, they have a smaller one. It's kind of more of a narrow place. And they have candles that are on the shelves along the walls. So Gustavo says perhaps the experience offered by its scents, the variety and publicity in the market. Okay, I want you guys to think about trust and authenticity again. So what makes you trust a brand? And what makes a brand authentic? So it's not really so much about the product itself, it's about what the brand offers you. So if you buy a Yankee Candle, one, you've been able to smell it, and so you know you're gonna like the smell, right? So there's a trust there. And then also, you know that they're going to burn, and if they don't, you can take them back. So you know that they will last and that they'll work. And then authenticity, they are the first ones on the market to move from functional to more ambiance created, more pleasure and indulgence. Okay, the vision they show. Gloria says the vision they show. Gloria, can you explain that more? Do you mind unmuting if you can? And tell me what you mean by that.
Pues digo la visión porque es un producto que se está mirando por sus colores, sus aromas, y es algo que llama la atención, ¿no? La variedad, y da confianza de ir a comprar algo.
Okay. Thank you, Gloria. I got aroma, smells, but I didn't get the rest. Jessica, can you help me?
Aromas y pues su marca, ¿no? Que siempre la marca tiene que como que tener algo como un acento, llama la atención. Uh-huh.
The brand draws you in. Okay. So what is it about the brand that draws you in?
Cuando dice candela, ¿no? O sea, a mí me gustan las velas y me gusta comprar velas, entonces siempre que voy a buscar velas, siempre busco, no sé, siempre me llama la atención la marca. La marca, los colores, la variedad, ajá, y los estilos que tenga y la variedad que es para
so the aesthetic,
adornar, ¿no?
Sorry.
Algo que se vea bonito. Entonces,
okay, so the aesthetics of it too. I heard colors, smells, the look of it. Is that true? It makes you want to light it and smell it and release it in your house. Is that right? Am I understanding that correctly?
sí, correcto,
okay.
Correcto.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, and that's what Yankee Candle is conveying. They're actually creating a literal shift in your environment to something that is more fantasy based and allows you to kind of reflect inwards and to create an environment that you might not necessarily been able to create before. So the candle is really just a prop to allow you to be able to create something different than what you have now. And that is absolutely part of their authenticity of creating new moments. Okay, does anybody else like to comment? If not, I'll move on. Okay, so for Yankee Candle, their authenticity lies in the name, the packaging design, the very nature of the product, being a benchmark brand, and the continual new contextual sense. So the packaging on Yankee Candles is pretty important. It is most people probably don't know, but it is a more traditional kind of like crockery pot type design, even though it's made with glass. And again, that kind of heralds back to the colonial period in America, and where candle making was really important as well. So there's a nostalgic piece to it that makes it, that gives it authenticity. And then again, they understand context pretty well. They put out a scent or a series of scents for basically every season, every holiday event, every moment that they can. So like people who have deep souls or are true to themselves and others, brands must be too. So for Yankee, it's heralding back to colonial America, right? But and reinvented in a completely new way. So that's the end of my part. Acid Branding is my company, and we create North Star brands. And this is how brand strategy works, is getting down to what the authentic self is. And Yankee Candle is a great example of that. So I'm going to pause and stop sharing my screen, and hopefully people have some questions. Oh, actually, what I want to do is go back and let me escape out of this. Okay. So unless there's an immediate question, I really would like to hear. Can you hear me? Because I'm seeing a mute thing here. Okay. What I'd really like to hear is what you wrote for your questions that we created. So what are 5 words that you would use to describe your brand, and what would 5 words that your customer would use to describe your brand? Would anybody like to share?
Hola Sandra, buenas tardes. ¿Quisieran compartir algo ustedes?
Buenas tardes, Gustavo. Entramos un poquito, bueno, muy tarde, ¿verdad? Pero una disculpa, estamos un poco ocupados y
no te preocupes.
Ya un poco alcanzamos ya lo último.
Lo último. No se preocupen, pero lo van a poder ver en mi canal de YouTube, en Impact Beaverton.
Es lo que hacemos porque a veces estamos bastante ocupados aquí y entonces no podemos entrar. Pero muchas gracias.
No te preocupes.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, Sandra. If you'd like to, I asked at the beginning of the presentation to take out a piece of paper and write down 5 words you would use to describe your brand, product, or service. If you want to do that, that would be that, or you can watch it later. That would be maybe help engage you into the conversation. Who has written down their 5 words and are willing to share them? Anybody? Gloria, did you write down your 5 words?
No, es que estaba ocupada y no lo pude hacer. Pero estoy pensando en ello.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Por ejemplo, tengo algo rápido. Tengo éxito, nombre, servicio, ¿cómo se puede decir? El éxito, el servicio, y también se tiene que ser El precio también llama mucho la atención a los clientes últimamente en los días de hoy. Ajá. Siempre viene el cliente y dice, primero quiero saber cómo está el corte, cuánto cuesta el corte. Y ya le dices precio y dice, no, que lo voy a pensar. Entonces hoy tenemos que tener la visión de ver muchas cosas porque el cliente está buscando precios más o menos ni muy caros ni muy baratos, pero yo digo que siempre debe de ser el servicio, el buen trabajo, un buen trabajo y un buen precio. Ni que sea muy elevado porque los clientes hoy se espantan con los precios.
Okay. Gloria, can I ask what you do? Gloria, what is your business?
Beauty salon.
Okay. Okay, so you've hit on very functional words, success, service, price. So those are definitely kind of part of it, but beauty salons are really more about power. So power and beauty go hand in hand. And we know, especially as women, that if we have a good haircut and a nice color and we look good when we walk out of the salon, that our social capital has increased. So beauty salons are not so much functional as that they are not only a place to enhance and increase our power through beauty, it also makes ourselves feel better. And if we've been seeing the same hairdresser for a while, they are a trusted friend. Hairdressers get told all kinds of things that other people don't get told. So it is a place of confession. And if you have a hair salon that's kind of active, and there's a lot of people that come and go and everybody starts knowing each other, then you've got a whole community. You see that in the African-American community in the barber shops. The barber shops are, okay, they're a small part about getting your hair cut, but there's a large part about community building that isn't talked about. And so they want to know that they can go to a place that they feel safe in, that they're going to know everybody, that they're going to catch up on the gossip, that they're going to know what's going on out in the community so they stay connected, and they're going to come out with a fly haircut, right? So it's much more than that functional piece of it. So when you go in, so what would you say are the 5 words that your customers would use to describe you?
Pues más que nada la confianza, las recomendaciones siempre nos han funcionado bastante porque es algo que nos ha traído más gente. Ajá,
Yes.
siempre la recomendación, el buen servicio, la calidad de producto que usamos y sobre todo, como usted dijo, ¿no? A veces ya tenemos una clientela de muchos años que sí se hace una amistad y es algo muy, muy bonito en los salones porque cuando ya entra el cliente ya sabemos quién es, qué va a querer, cómo es su corte y ya hay mucho diálogo con los clientes. Y sobre todo marcamos nosotros bastante ¿cómo le diré? La parte a donde hay mucho diálogo, mucha comunicación entre un trabajo que se le va a hacer como la noticia, el cómo está el día, o sea, una buena comunicación trae mucha también alegría al cliente, a veces el cliente viene enojado y ya un buen comentario, una buena risa, el buen look, ya lo dejé guapo, mire qué bien se ve, se olvida el momento y el cliente siempre sale contento, o sea que la confianza más que nada, la calidad y el bienestar para cada persona que viene a este salón y yo creo que a muchos.
So, okay, so it is trust at the heart of it, right? Because they know that they can go in and you're not going to butcher their hair, but it's also community. And then
Correcto.
about transformation. I mean, you say right here that they could be happy or angry, and Right. So they feel like they're heard and seen in the salon. So you said here it's really nice in salons because they know who they are, how they like their haircut, right? So there is understanding, and there's also transformation. You can go in a really bad mood, and if you have a great hairdresser, they can leave you in an more than price and speed and service. I mean, the service kind of goes into the trust piece of it, but do you see how it is much less functional than it is about creating a certain environment? And it's easy to get bogged down in these rational kind of criteria. So price might be an entry point for your clients, but it isn't necessarily why they stay. They stay because they know that you're going to take care of them, that they're in a safe place, that they can vent if they need to. And also it is, and they feel like they belong to a community of others. And it goes for men or women. There's a reason I think that there is more male and female based salons than there are co-ed salons for that very reason. And it's all about power, beauty, transformation of the self, and trusting somebody to help you get that. Okay, I see something on Jared's cleaning. I need a translation. Punctual.
We have the.
Oh, here we go. Punctuality.
Jose.
Punctuality, honesty, my company logo, and what I offer. Method of work is something I'm thinking about now. Okay. So I assume this is a dry cleaners or a laundry service or both, Jared? Jared, is it strictly a dry cleaning, or is it dry cleaning and laundry and like pressing shirts?
It's a house cleaning. Cleaning.
Oh, it's a house cleaning.
Yeah,
wow.
and commercial cleaning. Yeah.
Okay, so residential and commercial.
Resident and commercial.
Residential and commercial cleaners.
And okay. Commercial, yeah.
So yeah, so punctuality and honesty, yeah, so it comes down to trust again, right? They know that you're going to show up and that you're going to do a good job, but it's more than that. So Jared, what are 5 words that you would use besides, I heard punctuality and honesty, but what are 3 other words that you would use to describe your company?
Pues más que nada como la presentación del nombre de la compañía, porque yo pienso que, bueno, lo que escuché que dijo doña Gloria acerca del cobro, del pago, yo pienso que como lo que comentó de candles, de lo de las velas, ese ya es bueno, yo pienso que ya es un nombre que no, al comprar nadie va a hacer una rebaja o no va a decir, oh, voy a pagar tanto, o si vale $30, voy a pagar 25 o 20. Entonces yo pienso que también como que implica mucho el nombre de la empresa, porque yo pienso que, aunque sea muy pequeña, pero yo pienso que ya es reconocida en algunas partes y saben del trabajo que está ofreciendo uno.
Okay, I hear what you're saying about your company name is everything. And it is if you have established yourself. In the beginning, and it took years for Yankee Candle to really establish themselves, they didn't mean that much to people, but they did over time. And so it's not so much about the name. The name becomes an identifier for the brand, you know, for the company, but it's what the company does for their customers and their clients. So knowing that you hire a cleaning service and that they are going to come on time and they're going to do a good job is part of it, but there's more than that. So what else are you doing to building your name? Because that's what you're thinking about right now for a good reason, is that building your name is about building reputation, right? So Jared's Cleaning in and of itself doesn't say much, but Jared's Cleaning, once it has a connection to clients, customers, and people who are being recommended because of A, B, C, D, and E, then starts to have meaning. So you have the punctuality and the honesty piece of it in there, and that's really important. But what are the other three pieces that you give? Because I'm sure that they're there. Like, do you always answer your telephone so you're reliable? Do you always make sure that customers are happy if something goes wrong and you fix it? That means that you care. You see what I'm saying? You can look at the behavior, but you have to go back and think about the emotional collateral that you're building. So what emotional collateral are you building? Jose, are you thinking about it?
No, sí, lo estoy pensando. Lo que pasa es que ando trabajando también y es lo que es lo que pensé por el momento, pero sí, pues es algo para ponerse a pensar y pues está uno aprendiendo muchas cosas sobre de lo que está uno escuchando y vamos a volver a escuchar el audio y pues sobre eso vamos a hacer lo que usted nos recomendó, escribir las 5 palabras que pues nosotros pensamos que es algo que nos represente.
Okay. Okay. Can I have a couple more minutes of your time though? Can you tell me maybe what 5 words your customers would use to describe you? Just like off the top of your head. It should be really quick and intuitive and, you know, like instinctual. What are 5 words that you think your customers and clients use to describe?
Bueno, por el momento lo que yo pienso que sería honestidad, puntualidad, como ser creativo, pues no tanto como en hacer cosas extras, sino como bueno, supuestamente si es limpieza, organizar o dejar como ser detallista y pues más que nada ser amable con los clientes y en otra es como trabajar con ellos como acomodaciones, si es que ellos quieren mover sus horarios o eso, yo pienso que eso es lo que me recomendaría.
Okay, that's good. Okay, tell me a little bit more about the creativity piece because that's interesting. How do you express creativity in your job?
Pues como organizando pues sabemos que casi todo, la mayoría de personas tiene mascotas o tiene como cosas plantas adentro, entonces como una cosa, bueno, yo pienso que, o lo que yo hago es como organizar los juguetes de las mascotas, limpiarles los trastes de las mascotas, que eso no viene incluido en eso, pero pues uno lo puede hacer o para acomodarle de una forma que no estorbe y que se vea mejor y a lo mejor ellos no habían pensado en ese lugar, en ocuparlo, o una planta, no sé, quizás componerla, ya se está cayendo o algo, o tal vez organizarle por ahí algo que no les da tiempo a hacer ellos y pues eso yo pienso que muchas personas lo toman en cuenta.
Okay. So then I would say that organization for a cleaner is a differentiation point that you should be looking at. What's the word? That you should be looking at emphasizing in your marketing materials and in whatever new logo design or anything else that you do. Because not a lot of house cleaners will do organizing and kind of going beyond, above and beyond what is expected of them. They come in, they clean, and they leave. But to have somebody that comes in and takes extra care by organizing and making life easier, that's a huge differentiation point for your cleaning service. And that's really about care. So, and the organization is an expression of that care, but what you really have is care of your clients, and they know that you will take good care of them. Does that make sense?
Sí, sí.
Okay, so that's what I would do when you're kind of thinking about your brand and your name and your business and what it stands for. I would start adding in those pieces to your discussions and how you talk about things, and also any kind of, if you have a website or any print material or anything like that. Because that will make you stand out in the sea of cleaners that are out there.
Sí, está bien, por sí, está bien lo que usted dice. Yo pienso que sí, lo vamos a implementar o hacerlo. Como le digo, vamos a volver a escuchar el audio ya con más calma y vamos a escribir las palabras, las 5 palabras, y vamos a ver qué, pues, cambiarlo por lo que yo había pensado.
Okay. So, and then think about what, it's not just your 5 words, but go back and do the other exercises too. About, you know, what you stand for, you know, how do you build trust? Because those are really important. At the heart of every brand is trust. And if people don't trust you, they will not engage with you. So you have some strong, I don't know why my brain's not working. You have some strong things to work from, some strong concepts to work from. So make sure that you use those and do the other exercises as well. Because trust and then the context of your client's reality is going to be really important. And you can see that, like I said before, with the Yankee candles and how they've created all these different scent profiles based upon holidays and seasons and anything else that they can find up to sell more candles. And it works because they understand their context. So what's the context of your customers? Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to go?
Okay, Luisa, I think we don't have time anymore. So I love your presentation. Thank you for sharing with us. And
You're welcome.
thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. See you the next info session, the next Thursday.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a great, thanks, a great weekend. Bye.
Gracias a todos, gracias, Gustavo.
Hasta luego, que estén muy bien.
Hasta luego, Gustavo. Señorita, muy amable por su diálogo.
Gracias a todos. Bye.